What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Cording, and it's happening. That's right. Big Tech has continued to poke the bear on Section 230 protections, and last night a new bill was introduced to roll them back, and I, for one, am here for it. We also have seen some of the opening statements from companies like Apple, Google, and Twitter, I think. We're going to take a look at all of those. Before we do, no sponsor, just a quick reminder that in the pinned comment there'll be a link, or you could click the little join button below the video. It goes a long, it's just like a Twitch subscription, and it goes a long way to supporting your favorite content creators. Even if that's not me, please consider, if you're in a position to, joining as a member for the channel today. I'll be doing some member-only live streams and stuff like that in August, and you get fun emotes and all sorts of other cool stuff. Your comments get highlighted in the comment section down below, stuff like that. So I thank you if you so choose to today. Now, Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, Cook, Tim Apple, and all facing House grilling. The Big Tech hearing has been delayed until 12 to 12:30 as the Judiciary Committee attempted to complete another hearing on other stuff. The CEOs of Amazon, Apple, Facebook will testify before House lawmakers over allegations of anti-competitive practices. For members of the House Judiciary Antitrust Subcommittee, this will be the sixth hearing in their investigation into Silicon Valley antitrust. Now, I don't know, and these are all their initial statements. As political notes, the session will also rise as scrutiny of the behemoths is surging across the globe, including expected Justice Department antitrust case against Google and recent launch of 2 European probes of potential anti-competitive behavior by Apple. It will make the first time for Jeff Bezos, the world's richest person, has offered testimony before Congress, albeit via video conference, while judiciary lawmakers will attend both virtually and in person in a hybrid format. That said, today's showdown could go one of two ways: fireworks or snooze fest. My guess is snooze fest. If the Democrats jump off the script from antitrust issues and press the CEOs over online hate speech, or if the GOP members drill them on anti-conservative bias, things could get interesting, and I hope they do. The discussion will go beyond antitrust, said Carlos Sazbo, VP and General Counsel of NetChoice, a tech trade group which counts Google, Amazon, and Facebook as members. It will go into issues of election interference, conservative bias, or any other issues du jour on which we would like to saddle tech. As detailed previously, here's what to expect, assuming things go to plan. Lawmakers will likely question Bezos about Amazon lawyer misled the Judiciary Committee last summer by claiming the company doesn't use data collected from third parties. There's all sorts of stuff going on that I think is great. And Paul Gosser, now Breitbart reports Paul Gosser and conservatives introduced legislation to protect political speech on the internet. It's so mind-blowing to me that this is such a strong, like, conservative thing. This should be everybody. Because one day, I would assume, the popular platform won't be run by people that have a clear political bias to the Democrats. One day, there will be a quote-unquote alternative to Twitter that is conservative-led. I prefer you have one that doesn't have a bias, but let's just say hypothetically, Twitter gets bought by somebody, a super rich, I don't know, conservative person. And then they started implementing their own bias and policing speech that negatively affects your favorite Democratic Party, your favorite party, political party. Everybody, despite of if they have a D or an R or whatever in front of their names, they should be pushing against this. Reps Doug Collins from Georgia, Ralph Norman from South Carolina, Lance Gooden from Texas, Steve King, Jim Banks, a bunch of all Republicans, and Gosser introduced the Stop the Censorship Act of 2020, which would revoke big tech companies' section of 230 of the Communications Decency Act legal immunity if the tech platform will remove lawful speech on their platform. Smash like now. Smash like if you want them to reply, remove the Section 230 protections. Now, I'm not saying, thank you for smashing like, and also some of you just subscribed. I appreciate that too. I'm not against Section 230. I think it's good. However, in its current form, it is not good. And if we're going to allow somebody like Twitter and Facebook to play editor and in essence become a publisher of content, then they should not be held. They should not have the same immunities. Now, the House Republicans' legislation aligns with recommendations proposed by the Democratic Department of Justice. Gosser said in a statement on Wednesday that Congress can no longer allow big tech companies to deem what is and what is not allowable free speech on the internet, Gosser said. By the way, if you want to know where I stand, I kind of stand in the, I understand that it's a private platform, but I also view places like Twitter and Facebook as the new public square. So it's a tricky spot to be, I suppose. They said online platforms should not have special immunity to censor competition and lawful political speech. The broad and undue immunity for content and user removal granted by Section 230 must be reined in by Congress. We cannot continue to subsidize, deputize, or blackmail Silicon Valley to decide what is or what isn't allowable conversation. Stop the Censorship Act empowers users and limits big tech to the same rights and liabilities as everyone else. Gosser introduced the legislation as Breitbart's news alums Bakari reported on Tuesday. The internet search Google, giant search Google, which controls 88% of the internet search market, has purged Breitbart News from search results. I saw they were returned, and then it was said it was a glitch. Yeah, sure it was. Gosser introduced the legislation as Breitbart. The House Judiciary Committee also plans to hold an antitrust hearing with Amazon, Apple, and Facebook, which I already talked about, and Google's dominance on the internet Wednesday. Freedom of speech and the market of competition are two of the strongest pillars of American freedom, but big tech has shown little regard for either. Congress must protect the values that make America great. Gosser's Stop the Censorship Act of 2020 would promote free speech, big tech transparency, and competition on the internet. All great things. Like literally everything about those things. This is what I don't understand. Why is this a partisan issue? I mean, like, I'm asking. Why is this a partisan issue? It absolutely should be a free speech issue, and free speech should not be partisan issue either. Now, the legislation will revoke big tech's immunity for removing, quote, otherwise objectionable material in Section 230 and create a new standard that would set a new legal protection for the removal of unlawful or promotes bad behavior, we'll say. Office contended that the new legal immunity would incentivize platforms to be more transparent and abide by their own terms of service. Now, if Twitter wants to say that we want to push whatever, we want to, let's be honest, Twitter, Facebook, all these platforms engage in election meddling. They do. And they do it by deleting posts, by deboosting, by blacklisting, by banning people. And, I would be fine. I support Twitter saying, you know what, we want to do this. We want to ban the president from our platform. Okay, great. Cool. Do that. But don't get Section 230 protections then. You don't get to do that. Especially when you're talking about government officials. Like, especially when you're meddling in what they're saying, that gets particularly sensitive. The Arizona Conservative's office also noted that Silicon Valley companies have argued in cases such as Enigma Software versus Malwarebytes that otherwise objectionable term creates legal immunity from antitrust claims. The Stop the Censorship Act would ensure that Section 230 does not extend to antitrust claims and aims to promote competition. The legislation also empowers users with the ability to choose their own online content filters. Collins, a former ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, stated the following. Our country was founded on free exchange of ideas and the ability of all Americans to speak freely, a principle that has allowed the internet to thrive. But in recent years, companies like Twitter and Google have used Section 230 as a shield while unlawfully abusing the First Amendment rights of their users. It's time we put the end to big tech unlawful censorship by rolling back their broad protections and promoting market competition, which is exactly why the Stop the Censorship Act 2020 is what it'll do. Again, I hear people, I'm a private company. I 100% agree. If Twitter wants to do that, cool. Let them do that. Let them be a private company. But if they want the government's money, if they want the tax breaks, if they want the legal protections, then you gotta play ball. This is how it works. You don't get to say, well, we're going to just, selectively censor people and shadow ban people and, trade people's information. But we're just a platform. Please leave us alone. You can see The Verge. Democrats want a truce with Section 230 supporters. I wonder why. Section 230 of the Communications Act says that apps and websites aren't legally liable for third-party content, has inspired a lot of overheated rhetoric in Congress. Republicans Josh Hawley have successfully framed the rule as a gift to big tech. It is a gift to big tech that enables social media censorship. It does. While Democrats have very different critiques and have the same and some have embraced a similar fire and brimstone tone with the bipartisan Earn It Act. But Senate subcommittee tried to reset that narrative today with a hearing platform accountability in the pact, a similarly bipartisan attempt for a more nuanced Section 230 amendment. While the hearing doesn't address all of the pact's very real flaws, it presented as a bill of an option for Section 230 defenders who still want to say in political reforms. After 3 hours of questions from the Senate subcommittees or communications technology, innovation in the internet, pact looks like an attempted truce between Section 230 reformers and supporters of the law. A panel of witnesses expressed major concerns about the bill and also offered qualified praise and consensus. Meanwhile, PACT Act co-sponsor Brian Schatz, Democrat, decried the grandstanding and misinformation that's filled earlier debates. There are many, some who try to use this hearing as an opportunity to create a clip for social media. Yeah, like all of you do, to make a few partisan headlines, but that's not what it's for. It's co-sponsored by Republican John Thune of South Dakota, and some Republican lawmakers probe the nuances of internet law. I think earlier this year, you see Banker was castigated for big tech's failings at a confrontational hearing for the Earn It Act, a bill that would carve out Section 230 exceptions for spicy, very, very bad material. But also, think kids. But today, overall question was more muted and policy-oriented, focusing on details like whether or not companies should have to remove content that a court has deemed bad. I think a well-crafted statute could do a lot of good here. Cox acknowledged if the law were to provide clear standards for platforms telling them how they should handle defamation judgments, for example, it's exactly the way that Section 230 should work. I agree. It needs to be more nuanced. It needs to be more nuanced. And quite honestly, if you're going to be meddling in partisan, censorship, then you should just be out. 100% be your own company, but you're not going to get government protection if that's what you're going to do. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that the lawmakers out there continue to push this forward. I hope that you've subscribed and you've liked the video. We'll talk to you again real soon.